Okay.
We're now joined by Carl Palmer of EmersonLake&Palmer. How are you today, Carl?
Yeah, pretty good, Jay. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Always great to talk to you. We go way back to the early days, and it's so good to see you keeping the legacy alive. Why is it so important to keep the ELP legacy going?
Well, to tell you the truth, Jay, ELP was one of the first groups to enter the prog rock world, and we made some major movements within the art form. Tarkus, for example, was one of the very first concept albums, and as you know, it's a British art form, and it just seems really very important that this music gets taken down to a new generation. I play it in a slightly different way with guitars and not keyboards to attract a younger generation into this music, because the music is so valid and it's so versatile that I just think that this thing is here forever. It might never be as big as what it used to be, but at the end of the day, it's like an English art form. It's a bit like jazz. It's an American art form. It's always going to be there. It might never be as big as it used to be, but it's there. It's part of the infrastructure. That's how I look at it.
Well, I'll never forget not only being introduced to the band, but I'll never forget that holiday that I went out and bought Brain Salad Surgery and Dark Side of the Moon on the same day.
Wow, that's great. See what an event that must have been.
Yeah, that was quite a holiday. And I'm telling you, between you guys and Yes and Genesis, like you say, the art form really took off, and you guys always had such a unique sound. Tell us about Keith Emerson, what he brought to the band, because I know he had a big classical background, as you had a very broad background. What made Keith so special that really made it work?
Well, to be honest with you, both Keith and myself had this strong sort of classical inclination to want to play classical music. I come from a family of classical musicians, and, a lot of the music that I would speak to Keith about, like Pictures at an Exhibition, Bartok Barbarian on the first album, and things like this, and Prokofiev stuff we'd used. It was part of our record collection. That's what we were all about. So there was a lot of synergy between the two of us from that level, and it worked really, really well. And it was obviously, something we needed to do, because we hear classical music on the radio every day on more than one channel in Europe, in England especially. And, we're influenced by that. And for me, to have been in a band like EmersonLake&Palmer that was a classically sort of driven rock band, would be ideal, because I'd rather be in that than in an orchestra, because to use technology like Keith did with the Moog and things, he was one of the very first really to do all of that and express classical music in that way, using the Moog, the Mini Moog, all that stuff of the day. That was like really important. Yeah, and the GX1 we ended up with, and we recorded, which was made by Yamaha. We recorded Fanfare for the Common Man, which was a #1 single in England, huge here in America, and that was written by Aaron Copland, the American composer.
Well, yeah, it was so groundbreaking, and you add the vocals of Greg Lake, who really gave you that that crossover appeal. He took the classical instrumentation and gave it that that melody and harmony that made it so acceptable to radio and certainly to the world.
Yes, agreed.
Now, obviously, one of the shows that I was at, among the many, was I was at the California Jam, the Cal Jam back in '74, where you guys headlined with Deep Purple, and was quite the big televised concert, and I'm sure you couldn't see the back of the audience. It went forever. Tell us about your memories of, playing a festival that big, which is still to this day the biggest festival in California history.
Well, I really can't tell you too much about it. Those things, they come and they go quite quickly. You fly in, you play it, and you leave. I don't recall seeing much about any of that. People ask me about the Isle of Wight, the similar thing. You don't really get a sense of the grandeur when you're actually on those type of festivals playing it, to tell you the truth, because you're in and you're out, and that's the way it goes. And I can't really tell you much about that. I remember it was a very exciting day. The band played well. It was, I think that was the day they had the problem with the camera, and Richie Blackmore, he broke a lens of the camera. It was a double bill. It was Deep Purple and us. All the stuff, has already been written about. about and talked about many times, but I can't actually remember the day that clearly, to be honest with you.
Sure.
There's a bit of a fuzz then, and it's a bit of a fuzz now.
I know it's another date on the itinerary in a way. You're focused on playing the gig, but everybody else that went there, it was like a once in a lifetime event.
Yeah, of course.
Now, obviously, Keith also was quite the showman, moving the keyboard around. Obviously, just standing up there, playing a keyboard isn't the most exciting thing in a rock band. These are years before the big video screens and the close-ups and all that. What made you take drumming to the next level and, put on a show? Obviously, you had, quite the kit. Talk about being able to step up your game and really put on a, live performance.
So, I mean, basically, ELP, as a collective unit, all of us, thought we needed to give what we call a certain amount of eye candy along with the music. And the music was very important to us. Obviously, the music came first. If we could add to the music anything that was visual, which we did do, with the production, with the stage production, with the stuff we were flying above the stage, with the lights we used, we set quite a blueprint in that area. Whatever we could do as individuals within the structure of the music, we would do. I had a revolving drum riser. Greg Lake wanted to stand on this carpet and do all of that. Keith wanted to jump over his organ. So all of these things, were related to the music. We just didn't add them. We figured, what can we do here to take the music to another level? Let's give something for the eyes. Let's give an experience for the eyes. Eye candy. Let's do something. So that's how it came about. And, we were always looking to try and improve that situation. The band was an incredible sort of visual band. I mean, English bands always had been. If you go back to the Who, they were an incredibly visual band. You go back to my very first band I was in here in America, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, my first number one when I was 18, and album at the same time, I Am the God of Hellfire. That was an unbelievable visual sort of band, a guy with a fire helmet on stage, wearing makeup. I mean, kids were still in diapers when this was happening. So, it's always been connected to English bands in some shape or form. Not all bands, but a lot of them.
Sure. And I know you mentioned the Isle of Wight performance. I know you guys were virtually an unknown band. I believe you said it was your second gig ever, and you kind of came in to replace somebody or a last-minute addition. And this was a show with the Who and so many important bands.
We just came in because they had 45 minutes on the day that hadn't been spoken for, and we got the gig through a friend of Keith's, who Keith used to play with. Gary Farr was a singer in a group called Gary Farr and the T-Bones. Keith was a keyboard player in that band. Gary Farr had turned into a promoter, called up Keith and said, would you like to do this? And Keith said, let me speak to Carl and Greg. We said, why don't we do it? We went along and we played for exactly 47 minutes. That was the Isle of Wight, and that's how we got on. So if you hear anything else, it's not true. That's true. It'll all be in my book, which is the autobiography, EmersonLake&Palmer, Before and After, by Carl Palmer. It will all be in there. So you'll never have any doubts in the future.
And when can we expect the book?
The book is finished. I'm just going through now, adding a couple of anecdotes, stories like that, like I've just explained to you. I mean, if everything goes well, when I get back in about 4 or 5 days' time, we've got 3 days solid work, and it's up to date. All the photographs are pretty much there. There's some clearance got to be done. And you never know, I mean, BMG, who ELP is signed to, want to give it a professional read, and then we'll update it again. And who knows, we might have it around for the end of the year sometime. I just can't say at this moment in time, but it could well be this year, if not early next.
Well, it's always great to read those stories and hear the insights behind the music, because we always have the music, but just hearing how it all came together and some of the anecdotes of, the other artists you collaborated with and all that's incredible. Now, I also was one of the lucky ones to attend the full orchestra. Was that 78, 79?
Yeah, in that period, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know that was a daunting task to, rather than hire a string section in every city, you actually rolled out with... How many piece orchestra was that?
Yeah, we didn't hire a string section in every city, Jay. That's not correct. We actually carried the people around with us. Everybody in the orchestra was on board, and we carried them on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. I said rather than hire a string section, you guys actually brought it on the road.
Yeah.
I saw it in Denver McNichols Arena. You know, what was the idea behind that, to really have players that, you know, really were with you every day and, you know, put on such a spectacular show?
Well, it's the same old adage, isn't it? You know, the more you play together, the better you should get. So that was the idea. If we played with the same orchestra every night, hopefully we would get better and better with them. And we did. And we had a great time. You know, unfortunately, we didn't get the best recording out of it. We got a reasonable video out of it. And it was really, you know, it really proved the point. It was very exciting. That's why we did it.
Sure. Now, bringing up to date, I know BMG is re-releasing the ELP catalog, and of course they've signed the Carl Palmer Band. You'll be coming out with new music. Tell us about basically those remasters. Is that what it is? Is there any additional tracks or different mixes, or is it all the same albums remastered?
Okay, so here you go. So we just released a box called Fanfare, and in that box it had some unreleased music, which were live shows, one from my hometown in Birmingham on CD, another couple of CDs of live shows that had been unreleased, previously unreleased. There was nothing, they weren't available. They're in this box set along with various vinyl that we've added in there. We put in like a coffee table book, some great pictures of ELP and things like that. There's also a black envelope in there with some glossy photographs. It's the complete history of ELP. It's something that Greg and Keith actually wanted to see before they both died, but they never got the chance to. I finished the box set off with BMG, and that was available, you know, as of about a few months ago now. We made 3,000 of them, and I believe they've just sold out now.
Wow, that's incredible. Now tell us about the current tour, because I know you've stripped it down to a three-piece. You've got, of course, yourself on drums and a guitar and bass, and you're doing the instrumental versions. Talk about the concept behind that and why this is what you feel the best interpretation of the music here.
Okay, so what I decided to do was try and bring this music, EmersonLake&Palmer's music, to a new generation, a new audience, a younger audience. But I still wanted to keep the people who were the dedicated fans, you know, very, very keen and very interested in what I was doing. I didn't think it was right to get a keyboard player and pull in another singer. So I decided to look at the instrumental, the classical pieces of ELP, which were very, very important. And I looked at it, and there was obviously a ton of stuff that could be done. Obviously, some of the songs could still be played, and the lead guitar could be playing the vocal line, or we have a Chapman stick, which is a 10-stringed instrument, which plays a lot of keyboard sounds if we need them, which we do have. So we have a 6-string bass and a Chapman stick, which Simon plays, and Paul Bielatovich is the lead guitar player. So my idea was to try and express the music and show the versatility of the music in a different way, which I've been doing since 2001. There's a new album coming out on BMG, Carl Palmer, live, and that's going to be coupled up with a DVD, which is a tribute to Keith Emerson, that I recorded down in Florida a year ago, just over, and that's got people like Steve Hackett on it as guests. Mark Stein from Vanilla Fudge is singing a couple of tracks. I've got the Ida Choir singing on Jerusalem, and that will all be available through BMG. But basically, my band is an instrumental band. The actual musicianship is of the highest caliber, and it's just showing ELP music in a different light, using guitars. There's a different type of excitement. Obviously, you gain a bit, you lose a bit. You gain a bit, you lose a bit. That's how it goes. But for me, it's definitely the freshest way to sort of show it in today's sort of arena, as it were. So that's where we are with that. And it's been a great experience up to date.
Well, we're so excited to have you back in Southern California. The Rose Show on Sunday in San Juan Capistrano. It's going to be amazing shows, and we can't let you go without at least touching on Asia. I know it was an important, chapter to a lot of people. Obviously, after Emerson, Lake&Palmer, you put together a super group. You joined, with Steve Howe and John Wetton and, Jeff Downs. Talk about your best memories. I know MTV was new and you guys exploded, with the big hits and, such a great sound and visual. Talk about your best memories of Asia coming out.
Well, I mean, you've sort of said it all. Asia started with the beginning of social media, really, MTV, music TV, and that's when it all happened. And David Geffen was instigated the whole thing, got us out there. We had a #1 single for 7 weeks, along with the album. I mean, it was really a fantastic, thing to be part of, and it worked incredibly well, and we all had a great time. It didn't last very long due to John's illness and stuff, but overall, it was a very, very cool experience, and we really enjoyed it. We just, John died in January the 31st, and that was 2017. So there was a little bit of a problem there. We were about to go on tour with Journey. We couldn't make it with John. I did speak to John before he died and asked him who he would like in his place, and he said, if we could use somebody like Billy Sherwood, that would be great. Basically, we were going to use Billy and John if John wasn't well enough to do the whole set. Anyway, John died, and we called up. I spoke to Neil Sean and just said, I'm sorry, we won't be able to do the tour. John has died. And I said, I just don't know what to do. And so he said, Neil Sean said, we want you, find someone else to take his place, and we want you with us. And we played with him in March, we played with him in June and July, and we ended up using Billy Sherwood as a replacement, as that was John's last wish. So that's what happened at the very end of the day. And basically, the beginning of Asia is well documented. It was a bit of a rough ride at the very beginning because of John's sort of drinking and stuff. 1 second, please. Not yet. Later. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. I'm sorry, they're coming to get me another room. So that was it, roughly, Joe. Yeah.
Sure. Now I know you've been.
I'm going to have to go in a minute, mate.
No, we understand. We appreciate. Now I know you've been playing drums from an early age, and one of the sad things is they've taken music out of so many schools. It's what encouragement can you give to the young players out there to really dedicate themselves to want to do what you do or really be a part of great music.
To be honest with you, all these things, what encouragement you can give are really strange statements because, all of the power and all of the reasoning for doing something comes from within a person. If somebody wants to do something, they will find a way to do it, and they will experience that, and they will get on and do it, Whatever I say to someone, might help them, but it's the long-term internal sort of want and need and aggressiveness in a way internally that you put out, that you want to sort of get on and do something. You've got to be self-motivated, self-driven. So it's really difficult to say one particular thing that will cover all bases in that area, to tell you the truth. All I can say is that if you're starting a life in music, obviously, a good education within music, in other words, a good teacher, is always something which is always worthwhile looking at straight away.
Sure. Well, Carl Palmer, Legacy on the road now, the ELP Legacy, Southern California dates coming up. CarlPalmer.com is the website. Can't wait to hear the remastered ELP albums. And Carl, keep making that music. It's so important to see this legacy carry on. And I know Keith and Greg really appreciate it, and us, the fans, really encourage you to keep it up. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at the show.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. Sorry about the interruption. Bye to you all. Thanks. Lovely. Thank you. Take care.